Money was maliciously introduced as a tool of enslavement. Money is not part of evolution. That money is not evolved with so-called evolution of the human race. This is one of the examples of the earliest forms of money. It goes back to 2046 BC. The first bankers were the first priest kings as appointed by the gods. The first banks were the temples. What you're looking at here is really one of the oldest bills of exchange, one of the oldest promissory notes, one of the oldest negotiable instruments. And it was issued for 8 shekels of silver as interest, by the way. Fascinating. So we know that the banks run our world. Money, all money is private money from private banks and private central banks. And these are the banking families. If you don't know who they are yet, you better wake up. And they own everything. They control the World Bank, the IMF, the World Trade Organization. These are just the obvious stuff, right? And they control all the central banks from this place here. The Bank of International Settlements that dictates the policy to the central banks of the world. And they control our governments. It's that simple. And this is why banks can bail out countries, because they are the institutions that lend money to the countries. Many people are still under the erroneous belief that the governments own the banks. No. And this is why we have a problem. And this is why people like Lincoln, with his greenback, solved the problem virtually overnight. And that's why, guess what? He got a bullet. Exactly 100 years later, JFK did the same thing. He got a bullet. They control our education system, as I mentioned already. It's got nothing to do, our education's got nothing to do with learning skills for life. It's to create a workforce. Money controls the wars. Pretty much all the wars, in all of human history, have been controlled by the money makers. And you will not get away from that. Mayor Amschel Rothschild says, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws." And that's how these things work. They run the legal system through our governments. And I know this because I've been in the South African Supreme Court for more than 3 years against the bankers. And you realize that they control everything. JFK issued the United States note in America. 6 months later, he got a bullet. This is what the United States note looks like. If you think it looks just like the modern note, United States note. The money today says Federal Reserve Note. Big difference. This was owned by the people of the United States, not by a private corporation. They didn't like that. Incidentally, that's also what the Second World War was all about, if you're not aware of that yet. Everything else we've been told about the Second World War and what Hitler did, there's a lot of truth to that. But the biggest thing that he was guilty of was to create his own private money for the German people that made Germany the most prosperous country in Europe within 5 years. This was going to infect the whole of Europe, that kind of thinking. The bankers couldn't allow that. So they started a whole thing that we completely misunderstand today. And they used a whole bunch of people as lambs to the slaughter to achieve their purpose. You got to understand one thing. These guys will go to every length and any length to keep control. And if you don't know that yet, the government and the large corporations have stolen the countries from their people. That's what's happened. And in South Africa, we have a beautiful constitution that starts, "The country belongs to the people and all those who live in it." It keeps confusing the country of South Africa and the Republic of South Africa. And why do I say that? Because our countries are corporations. They're registered as corporations on the United Securities Exchange, USA Securities Exchange, and they trade our birth certificates, they trade everything that's got an amount on it or any kind of ownership. Here is a printout from the US Securities Exchange. Companies, search results, companies with names matching South Africa. Anglo-American, Government of the Republic of South Africa is a corporation, company. Lehman Brothers. Here's Standard Bank, by the way. Standard Bank. There's Old Mutual. Old Mutual is the 30th largest corporation in the world, in little South Africa. After Barclays PLC and Deutsche Bank and all that. Old Mutual, 30th largest company in South Africa. That's not from selling insurance to South African homeowners. Definitely not. And here's Republic of South Africa, the corporation. There are a few more examples. There's a lot more in my book, Ubuntu Contributionism. I list the whole list. Every country is registered and operates as a corporation. Money does not make the world go round. Look, it goes around all by itself. Money is the obstacle to all progress, the absolute tool of control. We don't need money. It's not the love of money. Some people say to you, yeah, but it's not the love of money. Money is just a form of exchange. It's a form of energy exchange. And they make all kinds of excuses because deep in their heart, they're just worried what would happen if they don't have money. That's all it is. It's about fear. So they use all these weird excuses. But what I'm going to tell you is that's not the love of money. It's the mere presence of money. The moment you introduce money into the system, it just corrupts everything. It destroys life among humanity. We cannot continue doing the same that we've been doing for the last 6,000 years. That's insanity. And we know that Albert Einstein defined it beautifully, saying that insanity is doing the same experiment over and over again, expecting different results. So after 6,000 years or whatever it is, surely we must have learned now and become wise. We can't carry on doing the same thing. We have to find a new system. Our system is broken. We cannot fix this problem with the tools that created the problem. And those tools are private money, private banks, central banks. And if we think that some clever economists, and we see these wise economists all the time on CNN, all these young with a brand new suit, and he says, I'll tell you how we're going to solve the problem. We're going to, and it's just all bloody nonsense. It's using the same tools to entrap us even more. Just remove the money. If we don't use their money, they cannot enslave us. Very simple. And this is where contributionism and Ubuntu comes in. You saw the little beautiful intro that was shot by Aline in South Africa. So I'm going to cut straight to the chase. Ubuntu contributionism. It's so simple we cannot screw it up because it follows a natural order of things. I've had thousands and thousands of questions over the last 10 years. I started this journey in 2005 at the first dinner that I was invited to come and share the philosophy of contributionism. Strangely, it was a woman that was senior bank. She worked at Absa Bank, which is Barclays in South Africa. And she invited me to a dinner party to tell her friends how a world without money would work. Well, they nearly beat me up. I'm not kidding you. They became so angry with me that I could suggest that we didn't need money. What do people need? We need food, water, love, friendship, homes, tables, chairs, knives, gardens, clothes, technology, healthcare. We need arts and culture and everything we can imagine. We need that, and we should have whatever our minds can come up. We do not need money. That's the one thing that keeps getting between us and the things we want and need. Money does nothing. People do everything. People plant the seeds, grow the food, build the bridges, create the rockets and the free energy devices. Money does nothing. People create the works of art, and people are capable of infinite love. Money cannot do that. The Beatles were right. Contributionism. My 5-point mantra is very simple. No money, no barter, no trade, no value attached to anything greater than anything else, because all of our contributions should be equally valuable. That really messes a lot of people up. Just think about that. And if you still think that what you're doing is more valuable to somebody else, you have a serious problem. Deal with it. And the only way we're going to get out of that is by getting rid of money. Money will constantly skew the perception of who the hell we are and what we think we're contributing. And finally, where everybody contributes their God-given talents or their acquired skills for the greatest benefit of all in their community. I'm making it sound simple. It actually is that simple. We just need to get over this bridge, this block that it can't be done. That is not true. How do we get there from here? We start with the first step. And it really is a transformation in small steps. We got to probably in the beginning use money to get rid of money, because that's how the system has been structured. You can't collapse it overnight, so we're going to have to be very clever about it and use the money to create, to do what? to create critical interim steps. First of all, take back the right to print money. Imagine, and this is what the Ubuntu Party is really offering the people in South Africa. And if you're not aware of this yet, the My Ubuntu Party is registered to run in the elections on the 7th of May. So we'll be on the ballot. Yeah. And it was really a miracle. I mean, it happened just within hours in Paris. And I found out 24 hours before we had to pay the deposit that the party we were going to go in with, who said they had the money, found out they didn't have the money to pay the deposit to be in the elections. So I had 24 hours to come up with 200,000 rand, which is a lot of money. So I made one phone call, and this one person, who's a wealthy woman, came through. She had the check next morning, bank guaranteed check that we delivered to the IEC. It's a miracle. So at one moment we were going to go under the flag of another party, which I wasn't happy with. The next moment we were in on our own, and we started raising money on Indiegogo, and we've now raised about $32,000, and we can pay for everything to do with the elections. So take back the right to print money for the people. Take the right back from the central banks, and you will solve pretty much all the problems virtually overnight, people. If you don't understand this, please go away and do some research. Figure out what I'm telling you here. The money for the people, by the people, not by private banks that charge you interest. When you print money for the people, by the people, it's interest-free. It's tax-free. It is available for all public works and anything that the people want and need immediately. There's no deliberating. Well, how much do you earn? No. The money must be made available. It's a tool of the people, not the other way around. And what I believe is that the small towns and villages are actually the core of starting the contributionism philosophy. It can start in the small towns very successfully. And critical community projects, the obvious things, energy, water, food, housing, arts and culture, whatever the community decides they want to get involved in, start using the collective money that you have and creating these critical projects. Because once you have a town that is creating more food than it needs by the people, and then it exports the excess food to their neighboring towns. Once that same community creates building materials and whatever, let your mind run free. Bread, milk, butter, cheese, vegetables, etc. And you make it available for virtually nothing because everybody in the community participates in making this stuff, and you make it available to the communities around you, you've just collapsed the capitalist system. Because they're all going to be coming to you to buy this stuff from you because you're selling it to them at a fraction of the price. So alternative community education, because we cannot keep educating our children in these prison camps called schools any longer. Take your children out of school, homeschool them, stop poisoning their minds. Use master teachers that are appointed by the community, not by some department of education. The community needs to choose their teachers for the children. I mean, everything in our lives is ass about face. There are no jobs or careers without money. Without money, you're not going to have a job or a career. You're going to do what you love to do. So I call it a labor of love. We wake up in the morning in the community of your choice, not a city or a disgusting slum suburb somewhere because you were trapped there for socioeconomic reasons. You wake up in the town or a village of your choice. You do what you love to do for your community, not only because you want to do it, but because they've accepted you for what it is that you do, and they love you and respect you and reward you for what it is you do for your community because you love doing it for yourself. And this is how everybody contributes. This is the first principle of human nature, is to create, is not to be lazy and sit on your ass and do nothing and let people do stuff for you. No, it's the other way around actually. All we want to do all our lives is create, and all that happens all our lives is we prevent it from doing and creating what we want to create. And create is a big word, okay? Only out of unity comes infinite diversity and abundance. Remember that. This is really the prime directive that I think Star Trek has been talking about. Absolute unity. And within that unity, you can have infinite number of diversities, but it all has to resonate together in harmony. Otherwise, it just causes dissonance and this just be a bloody mess. And that's what it's become. We live in a divided world where everything is divided and compartmentalized. It doesn't resonate in harmony. We need to break those walls down of separation and start resonating together and working together as a united force of human beings conscious of what it is that we're doing and where we are going. And that's what this is all about.